It just feels like some force like really just pulls me to like look at something, and like I just feel like compelled to just run into my bedroom and sit in there and meditate, and not meditate but contemplate, you know?
Yeah.
Things are being seen and like insights are happening, and what I noticed was that like joy would come, but then it seemed like the mind gained energy again or something. There was energy, there was happiness.
You're not to mind that, you know, what about the mind? Too much has been in the past, you know, a kind of a focus on what the mind is doing, how the mind is behaving.
Before I know it, it's like the mind is doing everything again and planning
everything. And it's
everything.
okay. It's okay. You can be aware of that, and you just see it as you identify it very quickly. That is the mind. It's the quirkiness of the mind that is arising like this, and don't mind about it. Like let it be there. It's okay. You only need to be clear that you're not that. This is, you know, this is the thing that I so much time and again emphasize and remind people that remember that doesn't matter how silly the mind behave in this way, how threatening it can appear to be, you know, how rebellious it can, how full of distraction it can arise with. It's all playing for your transcendence, you know, that you see through it, and it's okay, that you're okay with that.
Yeah, and I feel the power in it, because suddenly it's like, oh, it doesn't matter what it does, because there's a power in knowing who I am.
What is delightful is that this power has taken a grip of your body itself, you know.
Yes.
That you feel that you know, somehow this energy arises within you, and then you leave everything and go into your room and sit down. This is something already something so beautiful, because this is not coming from your mind. You see, it's like the self taste, you know. It's bringing that portion of the mind and the beingness which are collaborating to form the idea of a person. It's bringing that again into the auspicious dissolution, you know. It's bringing it again into merging with wholeness again, you see. So that part of it would come, and actually it is at this point that quite often the kind of nonsensical patterns of the mind start to come up.
Yeah.
You know, like somehow right at the point where the freedom comes, then the sort of there's a kind of idleness of the mind, you know.
Yeah.
And it's what you have described is so typical. It's like you've been sick for a while, and you know, you feel, oh, you know, and then suddenly you start to become well in the body, and then suddenly you want to be a gymnast, and you know, oh yes, I think maybe I can go and all, you know. It's just a way that what I call the idiosyncrasies of thought, you know, of mind, and you're not this thing, and don't be troubled by it, you know. Just more, it's really showing the silliness, the perverseness sometimes of, you know, of that that sort of personal aspect or something, personal kind of entity-ness, you know. But you are behind just as the pure intelligence of seeing, you see. And here is where you need to, where your contemplation will deepen, you know, to keep checking in to see if you can come to identify yourself as something solid, because when you look, you'll see that there's nothing really here as a me really that is solid. It's only a sort of shadow, like a conceptual shadow, but perceived in an indefinable and indescribable space, intelligence. And this is where I suppose you can say where the joy is in the non-finding of a personal me.
Yeah.
You know? And there's just that pure intelligence, that natural state. You see.
I was looking and it seemed I was going deep into something, but then I was like, okay, I know this is kind of like a trick, because you know, you feel like you're going somewhere, getting somewhere, and you're letting go of things, and then you know it's like I could feel last night it was coming from the mind. It was more from the mind.
Wherever there is, a sense of a me, even a spiritual me, even an evolving me, there's likely to be, this sort of the ant's nest of all this strangeness will come around it a little. Your real inner and intuitive sense, it's really non-personal, it really is non-personal, and it is as though the senses are functioning and there's perception, effortless perception of the world from a casual place of looking is going on, but there is no deeper investment in the play, in the traffic of thoughts or feelings. They're just allowed to be what they are. It's almost like there's nobody there to interfere anymore. It's as though there's no one here anymore to interfere or to feel the impact of thought as though they can operate as an enemy or as a friend. It doesn't really matter. There's no one here. How would it be if there was really no one here to be, batting at thoughts or working with thoughts? There was nobody to benefit and nobody to lose or to be injured at all. Just that there's a knowing that there's nobody here, actually. There's a place of seeing. There's no one here like that, not in that way. Something is here, but it can never be a victim. It can never be a successor. All these kind of terms don't apply to that. It is just too much of an immaculate state of being, you see. So somehow, because the body is here and the mind is here, somehow you can say the mind in terms of the perceiving ability, then a world is sensed, sense objects are perceived, there's a movement of thought and so on, but there's no more someone who needs to be managing that. That was just an idea, this idea that there was somebody to manage and to make the best use of something and to come out, with some kind of success story out of it. There's only the awareness,
Yeah.
This is where all the attempts of the ego is really heading towards. And I cannot say the ego is only interested in delusion, because the ego, from the perspective that it is an aspect of the truth of consciousness, the sattvic ego, auspicious ego, is actually searching for rest. It's prone to distractions because it still has an association with an idea of itself as being a person, but also it's able to transcend that when it feels the deeper pull of truth. Sometimes it feels a deeper pull, and it's an authentic response, you see. Because you cannot say the mind is just evil. No, it's not. It's capable of both the display of evil and good. And but the thing is that the mind, it cannot exist by itself. There's no such thing as a mind existing by itself. It's like a wave cannot exist by itself. It's just a movement of the ocean. And this mind is just like somehow a movement inside the being. And the identity also is a kind of construct. Just in the same way you can imagine yourself as a doctor playing a part and so on. In the same way the beingness is imagining itself as a person, playing the part of a person. You see? And somehow it appears that this beingness forgot that it was, just a possibility, a kind of role play, possibly seen that it could be fun, and actually fell into a belief that it is that role itself,
There's such a pull to be this role, instead of to observe it. There's such a, and I know a pull is observed, but it feels like there's such a pull, and sometimes I wonder, is it? This is more like my mind stuff.
Don't let guilt be joined to that perception. Don't start to feel like you should be otherwise.
Or well, sometimes it feels like maybe it's my destiny to still be it and believe I'm it.
When you say your destiny, who would you be to claim that destiny? What precisely would you have to be to reap a destiny? In what form are you presenting yourself as the one who is going to be, affected by destiny? It really requires some steady and quiet looking to see, when you say, maybe it's just my destiny, there's a lot of blindness in what we speak,
I know.
But when we say, maybe it's just my destiny, I know that in a sense it is like the universal cliche when we think, it's just it's just my life and know what's going to happen. But I'm insisting that you nail yourself down, you find out who is the I, stop right there, don't go any further, and check in with that statement that has just been made. Because if it is not seen, really, what is the truth of this statement, this statement will this assumed identity will continue to procreate new identities and new jobs and stuff for itself, so that what is effectively only an apparition, an idea you have of yourself, takes root because you, the consciousness, believes in this idea, and then this idea can germinate in your name. It can continue to procreate in your name. And so when you say that you feel that you might be the victim of destiny or something like this, I want you to find out, who are you speaking as? You see, stop and check it out, because it's so important to really be clear. If this is really a truth, if this is really a foundation, if this really is a truth, when you say I, this could be my destiny or something. Yeah, and it's so missable actually, because it's very easy to just move in the groove of assumption and the kind of collective consciousness of individuality and so on, and just keep on assuming. But the potency and the purpose and the effectiveness of the inquiry is that it keeps on confronting the identity that you keep on presenting as yourself, and say, but is this true? Are you that? What is that? You see? And something wants to kind of wriggle out of that question,
Sometimes in the inquiry, like a strong presence is there, and then there's a fear. There's like a kind of a feeling of vulnerability or something, and then the mind wants to do the inquiry.
If you're aware that the mind wants to do the inquiry, and it is allowed to apparently do the inquiry, already the battle has been decided.
Yeah, it's
that it's not gonna turn out to be really.
Yeah, no, it's nothing.
Anything, it's just gonna be a sort of like a play.
Yeah.
You see. Any idea is never fixed. It keeps on changing.
Yeah.
It might hang around for a while, for as long as the consciousness in its phase of hypnosis keeps on believing, supplying energy to, to this kind of idea of self, Why this idea of self is so fascinating, and for whom? Who is aware of the idea of self? If you leave aside the idea of self, what is left? Look. If you have identified that there's an idea of self that seems to be what is being engaged with and in and about, so the idea of self is not the self, let's leave that aside. What remains now?
Just nothing,
Yeah.
just, it's okay, the feeling of okayness.
It's more subtle than okayness. It's space and peace. It's a non-identification. There's nobody there to be hit by a concept, isn't it? Or to make use of some practice to do something.
Yeah.
Who would that be? Who's going to make use of a practice to get to truth? Who would it be? Can it be identified now? You see, each time you look again from your original place, there's no obstruction to your view. Nothing is possible can obstruct. Can anything cast a shadow on the sun? You see? And again you contemplate and confirm, meditate on it to confirm. What is it that what is the true position? Is it that this gets lost or something else? What is the actuality of the sense that something is missing or something is forgotten? What actually happened?
Just some old thoughts or concepts come and
Are they okay with you that they can come?
they're okay until I identify with them, because there's such a habit of it.
So the challenge is to not identify.
Yeah.
If you want to call a practice, that would be the ideal recognition, or that would be the best kind of practice, is to watch where the identity, or where I would say the attention goes into some sort of relationship with those type of thoughts, you see. And then there's a kind of a creation of a sense of an identity that has to operate in the world that thought is creating.
And that's fighting with those thoughts.
Yes.
Usually.
Or attracting them and sort of repelling them at the same time. You see. And each time that is seen itself as a movement, it becomes less a reality and more just a movement, you see, in that...
When in this identification, it feels like there's this idea that it's impossible to come out and that there's no will to come out, but then when not in it, it's like nothing. It's like nothing.
Yes.
Everything's fine,
Yes.
And this, like that was a dream, though.
That oscillation of attention and belief may carry on for a while. But if you just focus your attention only upon that which cannot move, which doesn't move, it doesn't alternate, it's not affected by any movement of thought or emotion, and keep on confirming that. It's like we say the sun rises and the sun sets. The sun goes up and the sun comes down. But in reality, it's not like that. The sun doesn't move. It's really the earth that turns. Mm-hmm. But because in a way we are on the earth and we don't feel our turning, it somehow is conceived in our minds that it's the sun that's going up. When the earth is coming, it seems like it's the sun that's coming up, and it looks like it's the sun that's going down. But the sun is actually still, in relation to the earth, and it's the earth that is turning. So we're the one turning away as part of the earth. The sun is still. If you apply that to the sense of the self, we are actually the self. We are actually the sun. And the identity, which has grown in importance because of conditioning and belief and habit, appear to be, it's like the self has been lost. But the self cannot be lost. It cannot even be found. Even the idea of something being lost and something being found, including the self, they're only ideas arising in the realm of the self. It's not moving. So that's why I ask, when you're here now in your conscious recognition, is this merely a mood? Is this something that can fade? Sometimes you hear me asking people, can this fade? Meaning that it's not really constant in itself. It depends upon something else. Can it fade? Like over time, will time affect it, the movement of time? Or thought, can it affect this? What is this?
No.
And this should be your contemplation, because when contemplating like this, you see, then it becomes very, very, very clear in the very depth of your being. It just removes the poison. It removes the narcotics from the consciousness that makes it believe that somehow I am the one who has done something wrong, which are just images produced in your consciousness that you are believing. And it's like even the very believing at a certain point is going to be seen to be conceptual, even unreal. That you believe or disbelieve. You see, this is a very, very subtle. This is a very, very subtle thing I'm saying, and perhaps it's a bit early to say it. Maybe it's a bit early to say that, but I say it that the consciousness will catch up with that, with what I've just said. That eventually, even trust and faith, even grace, they are illusory. In fact, there's just the self. There's just the self, which is pure awareness. There's no such thing as something other than the self to reach the self and so on, apart from through the consciousness, which is the power and the potential that is inherent in the self to dream and to imagine diversity, which is only a play within itself, to fall in love with its, not just love, also fall into hate also with its projections, you see. I see it that even the story of spirituality, of coming in and out, of remembering and forgetting the self, and then finding the self again, and then surrendering, and sort of like really sort of going into deep contemplation. At some point, all these movements are transcended, and pure seeing remain. This pure seeing is synonymous with a stillness of being, which is effortless. It's just there. It's not an achievement. There's nobody to achieve it even. The achiever has really been annihilated in the seeing. It's like it's not real. But why I say that, I don't want to say these things prematurely, because in an arrogant mind, a sophisticated intellect can imitate, pretend, oh yes, I know this, and like the kind of the knowing of this mentally or intellectually or theoretically or whatever it is, hypothetically, is taken to be like the realization of the truth, and it is not. The realization of the truth has got to burn out the idea of yourself as being a separate entity, you see, and only contemplation in the form that I am not the moving parts, I am not what is appearing or disappearing, but witnessing of them is occurring inside my own self. I am not what appears or disappears. Myself I cannot find phenomenally, cannot be produced, cannot be shown. To whom would it be shown even? These are kind of revelations, they're not, it's not creative thinking, it's just their revelation that come. You're just seeing, you're just understanding, just like when you look in a mirror. The mirror is not suggesting anything at all. The mirror is not interpreting. The mirror is not telling you anything about time or future or past. The mirror doesn't put any energy, doesn't waste, doesn't get tired by reflecting. There's something like that in us, our pure consciousness, which is not molested by, the thought of being a person who has to do something to become something else. So what is happening is that these type of notions, they are slowly burning off. They're losing their credibility, their apparent credibility, you see, in the consciousness, because the consciousness is recovering from sleep. It's like the anesthetic, of the Maya is wearing off through the power of inquiry. And somehow it's like the self is recognizing its original effortless existence. This is what is happening. And it is not too soon in coming. You see? It's very magical, all of this seeing. The method, if you want to say, of self-inquiry is itself grace and magic.
Yeah, because
somehow.
I don't feel I did anything to suddenly be seeing, which is kind of like, I wonder, also my fear is like, at some point will grace just stop this seeing?
Why should it? Why should it? But make use of your self-contemplative possibility, I say it like that, I always use the example that if you fall in love, no one has to remind you to remember your beloved. You don't have to turn, delighting in your beloved into a practice. It's not needed. It's just like it's natural. When you're discovering against yourself, because of the real the suffering and the struggle of dwelling in the modification of the non-self, then rediscovering your innate, your original joy and freedom. How can anything turn away from that? I don't think this is a journey you can go back. Either you were never where you thought you were, but you cannot go back. And maybe you can say there's a kind of forward, and forward means to just be more still. To recognize that there's no effort to be still. Although the consciousness plays as though it makes effort, and through the effort, stillness is seen. We can say like that, actually. Let's not be frozen. Let's not have any conceptual seizures, where you're stuck into a concept and you can't see beyond. We can speak anything we want. It's really the seeing that is important. We can speak. We're free. We can speak. Don't wait for the mind to be pure. Don't wait for the mind to be pure. It's a waste of time. Just keep remembering and being one with the awareness. Just stay as the awareness. You don't have any duty to perform more than just remembering, but how simple it is to be. The mind is really somehow for whatever reason appear to be suggesting, methods to be and ways in which you can get closer to the self and stuff like this. In a way, it is the consciousness that has to use all this trickery to refine and deepen its own power in a way, because if it wasn't for that, then nothing happened.
Then you keep believing in everything.
Yes, your very failure is your opportunity for success, if you want to say, because you experience pain and hardship, then it really drives you to transcend them. And it's this urge to transcend, in a way, that returns the power to the consciousness. You see, they work together. The devil is God's servant. Has a role to play. It helps you to, somehow in these bodies, the consciousness is going to be prone to a lot of delusions, and it has to turn things around. Like it's going to use the delusions to an extent to retain its transcendence. It's like that. You must not let go of this, what I'm speaking to you, that you are the one who watches, the voice of blame and guilt and shame. You're there, the presence. They are performing in themselves, They're really the interrelated opposites in a play. You are the witness of them. You are the audience to that play. It's not that really, you don't need to participate any more than just be the perceiver of them. I mean, are you not the one who perceives that movement, that play? And like you said, you already report that this one is not anywhere to be found, particularly as a located. It's not sitting in a chair. It's not sort of like it's not it doesn't weigh 80 pounds. It's not black or white. It's not a man or a woman. So you've already shown that you're not you're not an object. You're perceiving objects in all their varied expressions, from the subtlest thought to the most kind of gross manifestation of form. You're the perceiver of them. None of them can exist without you. But you are what? You see? Really, you don't appear and you don't disappear. You're coming back to your formless self, which is where the joy arises, It's just your joy. And if the joy, sort of like in this very, sort of like northern climate, the weather is not stable. The northern climate of the mind, It's sometimes very, very sunny, and then next minute it can start to get overcast, and it's lightning and thunder. Next minute it's just beautiful sunshine. So you are not the mind. You just let all these things play. They're playing out by themselves. Don't try and make a summer day last in this northern climate. Just it lasts as long as it lasts. When it's gone, rain as long as it lasts, like this. But you're not waiting. You're not the one who's monitoring the weather. You're not a weather reporter. You're just somehow the space in which all these temperatures, all these patterns are moving. I guess what I'm really pointing to is what I said earlier, that there's nobody there to interfere with the existence. Even if this body moves and appear to perform a contrary action, it just belongs to that manifesting consciousness. It's like, as soon as consciousness is present, it is present as the experiencer, and it's present as what is being experienced, and it's present as experiencing. All of these are the play of consciousness. It doesn't come from anywhere else. Is consciousness behaving in the form of the experiencer, as the I am, and as the me, and as my life, and as the other, and as the living? It's all the drama of consciousness. You see, and consciousness is an aspect of ourself. This is why we feel we're in this also.
Yeah.
But our most essential place is really unchanging, you know. It's just that pure, I call it intelligence in the moment, divinity, that is beyond time. It has nothing to do with time. It's not affected by time. It is not revolving. It's not alternating. It's not being affected. It's immutable. But out of his greatness, everything is perceived according to the perspective of the consciousness in a particular body. The view through that body is the view that is felt in the greater consciousness. You know, it's like this. I find that this type of way, words really are clumsy, and I'm not the best user of them. We are just about scraping by, trying to find the best use of words to kind of convey the wordless. And I think it's necessary and it's good to fail, because if we could succeed with words, you wouldn't go further, you know. It's the fact that the words are only a hint, they're only a pointer. The rest has got to be finished off by an intuitive awareness, you know, within ourselves.
Yeah.
That can't really, you know, words, the greatest orator, the most eloquent speaker, the most knowledgeable person, still cannot convey what the self is. I don't think Buddha could do it, or Krishna. They couldn't convey it with words. They could use words to their maximum potential and possibility, you know, and combined with their own spiritual force, it gave a fragrance that could quicken the recognition of the self, which is wordless, in what I call a receptive and sattvic mind. It could do that, but words by themselves can't do it, you see. This is why when someone asked Jesus, like, what is the way? What did he say? He didn't say over there or this way. He says, I am the way. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And he said, no one comes to the Father except through me. But Christendom has created a kind of like you know, they've done something very tricky about that. He says, the question was, what is the way? He says, I am the way. It is greater than saying, you know, the way is to study the scripture. It says, I am, meaning that what I am embodies all of that. I am the way, because what the scriptures are pointing you to is not just something you must follow, it's something that you must recognize you are. So Jesus is actually affirming and confirming, but I am that. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father, meaning no one goes to the Supreme, except through me, the I am, without knowing who I am. Not who I am personally. He was talking about his personality. He said, except by going through the door of I am. When you come in through the door of I am, then you will reach the Father, which is the Supreme. You see. But they were talking in terms of his Jesus. They were talking, his Jesus, you know, you have to follow Jesus. And he says, no, you have to follow the Christ. The Christ is the I am. You have to go through the I am, then you will know the Father. And I and the Father are one. Yeah, it didn't mean I am the Father are equal. He said, we are one. There's beyond equality, you know. We are one. They don't say I'm equal. I'm saying we are one, meaning that there's no separation. I am one with that. Whether I am this much or that much doesn't matter. I am one with that. There are no proportions there, you know, in it. You see, I am not separate. So actually, you have to, your understanding, the words are pointing you, but they have to be consummated. They have to be realized in you, where you know, but I am that. Yeah. Not I know that. You have to come to the realization, not saying to somebody else, but the realization, but I am that. What else can I be?
Yeah, because when you know something, there's two, though. You know?
Yes. I mean, it is called self-knowledge, in the highest sense. But I say it's a non-dualistic knowledge, meaning that you know that you cannot be anything other than that. And then lights out. You cannot develop this knowledge into philosophy or something. It's like that knowledge is the mirror. And what is seen in the mirror, you see, cannot speak. The knowledge is just the mirror. And that which is seen in this mirror cannot speak. It doesn't have anything, it's not interested in reflection even. And that's an intuitive thing. And this is really a testimony to the greatness of the potential of the human spirit to realize such subtle truths, It's in us, And not in some sort of arrogant way or some proud scholarship, It's in us because we are that. The world can be seen in a lot of different ways. There's not one view, What is the right view of the world? Actually, there's no right view of the world. If there's 50 million people looking, there's 50 million views of the world. You see, there's no right view of the world. It just depends really whether there is the consciousness as elevated as somehow transcended the lower identifications enough to be able to see with the pure seeing, meaning the seeing that's free from interpretation or judgment, and desire. So that seeing is called pure, that seeing. There are so many different ways of looking at things. Some people look at the world, they see only evil. Some people look at the world, they see potential. Some people look at the world, they see a lot of love. Some people look at the world, they see they just cannot comprehend what is the meaning of all of this. Some people think they know. It's just a question of perspective, you see. But only that one who has transcended themselves, meaning what? They get rid of themselves, actually. They stop thinking in terms of a me who has a historical background, who has a CV, a sort of resume or whatever it is. All of that doesn't pertain to anything except as an identity, an idea that I have about what I am. And they've not gone beyond this. The one who has gone beyond this don't have this trouble. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus said this. A human being has the potential to reach that level of insight in order to say these words without shame, without pretense, I am that. I am the way. There isn't a way apart from me, except as a projection. I am that way. I am that truth. I am not the thing you're going to find and keep. I am the one who is always here. And I am the life. I am not someone living life. I am life itself. What a realization, you see.
این چنین ساکن روان که منو